one if you'd like. This is the label that you have to look for to make sure it's certified fair trade. And it's called Trans Fair USA, the organization. And they certify that the farmer is paid a fair price for their product. And so there is actually one organization, and then there's a European organization called Fair Trade Labeling Organization, and they actually go to each of these cooperatives every year. So it's not like I just say I'm a fair trade cooperative and that's it. You have to show your paperwork, you have to show your documentation, you have to actually, uphold all the laws of fair trade, which are environmental practices, no child labor, democratic run organizations, fair pay to the farmers. It goes on and on. There's about 15 criteria. So yes, there is one organization.
But there are a number of sort of competing labels that are maybe less rigorous in their certification. I was reading about something about that.
There's actually, you may know this company, Dean's Beans. You guys seen Dean's Beans around?
Yeah.
Make coffee, not war. So Dean, for example, is not a member of Trans Fair, but his coffee is fair trade. So there's this other thing called Fair Trade Federation, and if you go to 10,000 Villages, have you been to 10,000 Villages? Yeah. Northampton, that's a fair trade craft store and arts, all the arts from the different countries. So they're part of Fair Trade Federation, and that is a little bit of a competition, but as far as food and coffee go, generally the symbol and Trans Fair is the main organization. And then there's going to be companies that say words like fairly traded. So then you have to do some market research and find out what does that really mean? What are they doing? Do they stand up to what they say they're doing? But as a point of entry, just if you're like trying to get your parents to change, so your parents don't listen, say, show them the symbol, say, look, just buy that coffee, or buy that chocolate, or buy that tea, or buy those bananas. And then you can look into other companies as they come along. But yeah, it's pretty clear right now. It's going to grow, and it's going to change. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, can I get the guy behind you because you asked? Sorry.
Sure. Two questions. One, wouldn't it? I'm not exactly sure how much, whether there's an amazing difference between what these coffee growers make and what the rest of the economy, the rest of the workers in many of these countries. But wouldn't that just make? Would this process not just make the coffee growers rich and then, in a sense, make all of the rest of them poor, all of the rest of the economy in there? Yeah. And is it really fair for us in the U.S. to designate them as being in poverty, as coming from our standard of poverty, rather than some of the other countries that people live on that and that's normal? Is that a fair statistic?
Okay. So the first part about, are you making some people wealthy and others not? No, because these are democratically organized cooperatives. They're already working together trying to achieve a common goal, and basically they are in poverty. They know they're in poverty. They don't have running water, they don't have electricity in their homes, they don't have health care or access to it, and a lot of their children are not in school. So these fair trade cooperatives are in areas where everybody's in poverty. And anybody that can produce, that wants to join the cooperative, is welcome to join. It's not like an exclusive club to get into a fair trade cooperative. And people are hungry for economic opportunity. So you're not going to end up making your next door neighbor so rich that he's building a palace while the person next door is starving. Generally speaking, in these rural areas, it's the whole community's involved. They're coffee growing communities, they're tea growing communities, they're subsistence farmers that grow bananas as well. So I don't think it's going to create that type of an imbalance. And what I've seen when I've traveled, generally speaking, in rural areas, that doesn't happen. It's a concern for the future, though, to keep in mind. And to decide who's poor, I have so many that I had to just pick one or two to show you, but basically these people have decided they're poor. There's a basic world poverty level. I mean, if you are living on less than $1 a day.
But that's set by us.
Well, yes, but if
you
don't
have enough food to eat,
right, you're starving.
You're starving.
You're starving.
You're probably poor. I mean,
yeah.
It's a good way to manage.
There's actually like World Health Organization. There's international organizations like United Nations, UNICEF. They set these standards, and these are members of countries from all over the world. It's not just Americans going in. I mean, I've lived in India, in rural India. I've lived in Costa Rica. I've been in Guatemala. And I'm not deciding they're poor. They're telling us we are starving. We have no money to send our children to school. I'm not coming in and looking at them as poor. They're telling me they're poor and that they're struggling and they have no way to make an income. So that is a really, you know, intellectually and educational-wise, that's an important standard to look at, is who is deciding these things. And that's where the word grassroots development, you probably heard grassroots development. That's what grassroots development means. You work with the people and you let them decide what their issues are and what they need. So this is very different than a top-down development model where someone goes in and says, you guys are poor, you need to get clean water, you need this, this, this. They sit down as a community and say, look, we're a coffee growing community, we're going to work together, we're going to become a fair trade coffee cooperative, and we want to do these things to improve our lives together. So it's not a westernized organization coming in. The only thing that's Western is the certification process, because people here are very leery. They don't want to support something if it's not real, you know? So why would I spend $1 more on a chocolate bar if it's not going to the farmer, you know? So they want a certification label. They want something that tells them this is true, this is really happening. So.
Are these kind of foods more expensive?
Good question. Very minimal price difference. If you're already buying anything other than a canned coffee on the aisle, you know, like Folgers, Maxwell House, those are cheap, right? Which actually I just found out can be actually 30% other matter. So it makes me wonder what's the other matter in their sawdust. I mean, so there's really cheap coffees, which are like Vietnam, Brazil, all exploitive, you know, plantation practices. And then there's what's called specialty coffees, like the Starbucks beans and all the other whole beans are already ground, little bags, the airtight bags.
But doesn't the people who really, what do you say, make the final product get more money, and that's why it's more money anyway? It's not like really fair trade. And
No. The reason it costs a little bit more is because these are very small companies. Just to get on the Stop and Shop aisle costs money. I mean, product placement is incredibly expensive. Advertising is expensive when you're working small scale versus corporate size. So they have to charge more so they can be a company that exists. If you talk to Dean Sycon, or if he could ever come here and talk to you, he's a great example of a local business. He pays the people twice minimum wage who roast coffee for him locally. So his whole business ethic is not only to treat people abroad well, but people here that work in the company well. So it costs $1 more maybe.
yeah,
The chocolate doesn't cost really, I mean, if you're buying Hershey, it's more than Hershey, but as far as, again, a specialty dark chocolate or milk chocolate, it's about the same. So the price is set under fair trade, and I know we have to wrap up, but like coffee, the farmer always gets the same price. There's no fluctuation. World market, they get whatever New York C market says that day. The stock market decides for them. So under fair trade, they're guaranteed. When you come to sell your beans, you will get $1.41 for organic beans. But if New York today, and you're not a fair trade farmer, says that beans are 50 cents, you get 50 cents. That's it. You have no choice. So it gives the power to the people. And if, again, if you're buying glasses, say, you know, some of you might know that McDonald's is now selling fair trade organic coffee. Did you know that? So when corporations get involved, that's where there might be a problem. That's why I always say support smaller local businesses if you can.
yeah, because maybe, I don't know, in Switzerland, the people who make the final product are rich.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Amanda. Could I ask you to just continue to answer that question together, because it's 4:20 or 3:20 and it's actually dismissal time now. Would you be willing to stay for a few minutes and talk to some people?
Of course.